The first step to changing your life is realizing you have the power to do it.
Dory 1, this is Fire Team Delta. Dad's coming home.
Welcome to the Military Veteran Dad Podcast, where it is our mission to bring every dad home. I am your host, Ben Killoy. I'm a United States Marine veteran, husband, and a father. We will bring authentic conversations to inspire action in your life so we can close the gap between the dad you are today and the dad you want to be tomorrow. This is the Military Veteran Dad Podcast.
Welcome back to the Friday solo episode number 2. We are still looking for a name for this series in the podcast. So if you have an idea based on these topics that we're talking about and you want to drop the idea of what we could call this segment on the show, go ahead and drop me an email at ben@militaryveterandad.com. And again, that's ben@militaryveterandad.com. You can drop me on Instagram, Ben Killoy, on Facebook, or on Twitter at Ben Killoy as well. If you're not following my other socials, go ahead and drop over there if you want to get a little bit of a glimpse on the back end of my life. Today's episode is the first step to changing your life and what that is. And it sounds like a cliche, and it is a cliche, that the first step to change your life is that you have the power to change it yourself. And I think this was something really hard for me because I never really grew up thinking that I could make my own choices. And it just really wasn't that's not just how my mind perceived my life as I was building it, that I felt like I was always on someone else's path. And some of that comes from school because you are on someone else's path and you're going through this program that is set up for you and you have to do it without choice and you don't get freedom until later. But you really don't fully respect that freedom when you're 17 and 18 years old. And then fast forward, you join the military where you lose more freedom. You actually don't have a lot of rights to choose your own path. You are told you need to report here at this time. And by the way, if you're not there, you're MIA or you're tardy. All of that leads into this idea that we sacrifice the power to really do and drive our life in some new direction. Turn that around, and if you're a military dad, think about how many times your kids are doing the exact opposite of what you want them to do. Think about how many times you're just like, damn, why can't they just listen? I tell you, it's probably weekly here at my household, and sometimes daily, depending on how our morning routine goes out the door to get to school. But all of those things kind of reinforce this limiting belief that we don't have the power to change our life. But so much can come from the recognition that we do have the power to change our life, that we do have everything inside already to create an amazing life. There are opportunities for growth that are so abundant outside of yourself to grow who you are today, to become a better human being, to become a better dad, to become a better husband. You have all of that inside already. It comes down to you making a choice for yourself. And what I had to really work through was I wasn't always making choices for myself. For most of my life, I was always making choices for other people's happiness, to make them happy, to make them like me, to be friends with them. All of these things were a big pattern of my life. And I had to really, one, recognize the pattern, because you can't really realize and change it if you don't even realize a pattern exists. So you have to recognize a pattern exists. Second, you have to then conceptually start recognizing the triggers that keep you in that pattern. Sometimes you can, maybe you have a great day and you get out of that pattern, but then bam, right back in. It's kind of like a diet. You start off with all the good ideas, all the good energy. This is going to be it. And then just one bad day, you're right back on that pattern. You don't really realize that you aren't making choices for yourself. You're making choices for others. And just in the past few months, I've really been diving into this idea that until we make choices for ourselves internally to make our life better, not for anybody else, but to really make a stronger you and me by ourselves, we really can't show up for people around us. It's kind of like showing up to the party with a glass half full and then expecting to pour into others with whatever they need and then running and wondering why you ran out early. You can't do that if your internal cup is not full. Another thing that shows up is sometimes if you've heard the idea, and I'm sure you have, of unconditionally loving people. Your wife, your kids, all of these things are talked about and they're general topics discussed in marriage. And often it's reasons why marriages don't work probably is because they'll say that I just can't unconditionally love this person. But recently I really got this advice given to me that you can't unconditionally love someone else until you unconditionally love yourself. I want to say that again. You can't unconditionally love others until you can unconditionally love yourself. And let's dissect that a little bit. To unconditionally love yourself, what does that mean? For me, that meant I had to love the good, the bad, and the ugly, because all of that helped make me who I was. I could easily wish I could snap my fingers and remove all the pain in my life, all those moments where I was sad, where I was frustrated, where I was alone, where I didn't have friends. But all of those moments, all of those pains made me stronger of a person today. All of it. I am a better friend now because I didn't have friends before. And if I had friends before, there's no way in hell I would have appreciated the friends that I have now or showed up as a better friend to them because I am a stronger person now because I went through those trials. And you really have to focus on loving those trials. And if we turn this to military dads, focus on loving if you suffer PTSD. Well, it is extremely hard to love that you've been cursed with this thing that you don't understand and that you hate being labeled with this name that other people give you, but you actually want to be erased from that name. Think about just truly appreciating that at some point, some moment in time in the future, you will look back and say, I wouldn't have had it done any other way. That moment will exist, and you have to trust that. You have to put faith in it. You have to put faith that everything that's happened to you will somehow happen for you. If you listen to the podcast, I told a story a little bit a while back about a letter I wrote to myself. And in that letter, I wrote some of the most profound things that I ever said to myself. And one of them was, early in life, people push me down so that later in life, I could pull people up. And what that meant to me was that everything that happened so that now I am a stronger leader, a friend, a father, a husband, because I was that guy pushed down. I am a much more empathetic person because my emotions are stronger because of those things that I went through. And if I had not gone through that, I wouldn't be there. My grandmother was my first best friend. She was at the end of our driveway on the farm. She was there when I got off the bus. She was there in the summer. I was down there making pies. I was right there the entire time. And growing up with my grandmother, that brought out a lot more in me that wouldn't have come out in any other way. I'm convinced it's why I am an extremely lovable person, that I give love freely and I can pour it into others. And also, I'm a little bit more emotional in touch with my emotions because I was around a woman. And she was my first best friend. Like, she taught me a lot about life. I didn't have to earn her love. It was always there. It was like this warm emotion that I could go towards, and it was always there. It was like a warm cookie that was always ready to be eaten, no matter what time of day. It was always there. All of that happened because it needed to. I am the person who I am today, and I have to love exactly everything that's happened. And the most important part of this that you really have to frame, everything that's happened because of some choices that we make, which is something we don't often like to acknowledge. That it's almost like when we join the military, that it's going to be rainbows and unicorns. It's not rainbows and unicorns, but somehow that's a lie that I am told myself even, that it's going to be easy. These are things that we signed up for. These are events that we stepped into. And we need to appreciate everything that event taught us, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We need to be able to look at all of it and love it. Because when we look at it through just a pure love that it happened, a pure love for the people around us, a pure love for the people that's brought to us. Even if you maybe you're divorced listening to this and you have kids, whatever happened, whatever choices happened, it still brought you amazing little kids and human beings that look up to you as their hero. That gift still came from something that was now maybe you view as horrible. That bright spot is still there. And so you have to find a way to love even the ugliness of a divorce in order to be able to go through and truly love yourself. Because until you can love yourself, you're always going to have this need to fill your bucket externally from others around you. And it never works. You can't seek external validation in your life, because when you do, the math just doesn't work out. You can't go to other people. It may work out for a little bit, but the cards are always going to be against you. That you need to be able to find a way to wake up every day and appreciate and love everything that's happened to you, and then just wait for that moment. I've talked a couple of times in the podcast that life is like a 1,000-piece Snap-on toolbox. Everything that happened in the military, your childhood, all of it, it's a wrench that's extremely special to utilized. It's for that one nut on the card that you don't even know exists. But man, when you need that wrench, you're like, damn, that wrench was exactly what I needed. But you won't know that until that wrench is needed. That's what our life experiences are about. So let's circle back to the title of this podcast. The first step to change your life is to recognize that you have the power. If you want to start making new choices, create new events, to create new impact with what's happened to you, you have the individual choice to do that. I had the individual choice to start waking up at 5 a.m. to try to start doing something about my health. There was nobody else that was holding me back except myself. There was nobody else except myself holding me back from starting reading books. There was nobody else but except myself that prevented me from sharing a vulnerable story. It was just me and this made-up fear monster that I had in my head that other people were going to reject me. But again, you have to recognize that you have everything inside already, everything you've ever needed. That has been my big takeaway in this December of last year, that I had everything that I ever needed right inside. I was missing only one final ingredient, and that was the belief that I had everything inside. I needed to believe it, and I didn't believe it. So I kept looking and looking and looking. It was just going to be that one more podcast. It was going to be that one more book, that one more mastermind, that one more friend. But in the end, it came back to, I didn't believe in myself. And that belief is actually my new 2020 word, belief. It will be something that I continue to breathe into my heart, to continue to meditate on, because that word is going to completely change my life, because I am going to execute on what I've always had, everything inside, the love, the power, everything I've wanted to create was already inside. I just needed to believe it myself. I kept waiting for someone to come up to me and say, Ben Killoy, I believe in you. You can begin. That person never came. It never will. You get people that say you're good and that you're doing good stuff, but you'll never really get that person that gives you the permission to go. The only person that can give you permission to go is you. And you have the first step. You can take that first step towards any direction you want, any direction. But that power lies within you. And the moment you outsource it, you lose a huge portion of your ability to drive your life forward, to be an amazing military dad, to create amazing kids, to turn your kids into an amazing adult, to have those adults change the world. You have to recognize that that step begins with you. And with that, I'd like to wrap up this episode, and I will talk to you on Monday.